All right, so what we wanted to do was we wanted to go over just some of the hottest topics on LVEI. We have our input as the page, runners, the admin, the moderator team.
Sure.
We get a nonstop 24-hour feed of news, right? It's basically, and all the members will tell you, we come here before we check the news because the stuff is usually here before it's on the news.
And by the way, that is crazy.
Yeah.
How fast you guys get stuff up on there.
It's real time, right? And the idea of it is we do vetting, like we do vet stuff. We do remove a lot of content from the page. And the thing about it is it's just, we use the general public as our journalists. So that's kind of the idea is, if you see something and you say something, say it to us, we'll vet it and get it out there.
Sure, but I was looking at one of your things the other day. It was the bus with the scooter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching some of the news reports and looking at the timestamps in the news reports. They were all saying, 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago, this happened.
We're within minutes.
Within minutes.
Within minutes. And we have valid, our sources. We do make mistakes. I don't want to say we're undefeated, but we do have reliable sources. If we do make a mistake, we correct it.
Right.
We retract our mistakes. We're not too proud to do any of that, but we're also not saying we're, the Wizard of Oz and all this other crazy stuff. But we do have very good sources. Our sources have proven themselves, pretty much, with a very high winning record over the last 10 years.
Sure, and there's some, everything has its place, right? I mean, if you have, the in-depth investigative journalism that they've been investigating for 10 months.
Correct.
There's, that has its place.
Yep.
And the idea of this goes up within minutes by live witnesses that are telling us what happened.
Yeah.
That has its place.
Yep.
It was a couple of days ago.
Okay.
And you have this, from the news report, this electric scooter guy, I think like mid-30s on an electric scooter. It says that he's crossing a crosswalk on the electric scooter and an RTC bus hits him. I watched the news. There are a couple of eyewitnesses.
I remember seeing a couple images that were okay to, we saw.
The news was reporting some image of the scooter. It was tough to see. It was a poor picture. It was tough to see exactly what kind of scooter it was. Underneath the bus, and the report was that the bus had actually run over the person himself, meaning
tires.
Drug
the scooter probably under the front,
and the poor guy didn't make it. And so what was frustrating about that is the police indicate that there's video, but they're awfully non-responsive, at least when I looked at it a day or two ago, about who was at fault.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that play out in a couple of different ways, right? And it all depends kind of on who had the light. It seemed to be at an intersection. There's a crosswalk involved. So it's probably, the light is really important. The speed, I could see, the family of the guy, no matter what happened, they have a colorable claim. Because even if the guy's crossing on a red, there's always this claim that the bus driver still should have seen and should have reacted.
Yeah.
And that is actually kind of legally true.
Yeah.
So the way the law works is you have the expectation, the right to expect that others are going to follow the law. But that right to expect others are going to follow the law ends when it's clear they're not going to. And so you can say that I thought he wasn't going to. I'm not going to talk about, I have no idea what this guy did.
Yeah.
No idea, but a hypothetical person. You can say that I have the right to assume he's not going to cross in the crosswalk.
Yeah, while I'm going.
Yeah, while I'm going. But once it's clear that's what he's doing, we have to enter a whole new conversation of, okay, but once it was clear that's what he's doing, what did you do?
Yeah. Now, does intent of him showing brake marks, at a certain distance away, and then the length of them with the
and again,
that's an accident scene, whatever.
I want to be clear, in case the family is actually watching this, I have no idea.
Yeah, we're just saying.
We're just speculating. Right. On a hypothetical, of course. So when we're investigating a wreck, we're going to look for all those things. We're going to look for where did the brake marks start? Was it such heavy braking that it was recorded in an event recorder? There are a lot of event recorders inside of vehicles that wouldn't cover heavy braking, but there are some for professional vehicles that do cover that.
Oh, really?
The RTC itself generally has a video installed in the bus itself, which should be accessible and really should kind of just tell you what happened.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to how quickly did the bus driver react, and again, we're under this hypothetical scenario.
Not the actual incident.
Not the actual incident. Under our hypothetical scenario, somebody's crossing on a red. So the pedestrian has prima facie at fault because they don't have the right of way. But there's going to be, everybody's going to be looking carefully at that video to see at what point did the RTC bus respond. And if the RTC bus driver is not responding very quickly, you'd say, well, everybody's going to have opinions there about who's at fault. But the fact that everybody's going to have opinions about who's at fault and what percentage, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Okay, so under that scenario, so let's assume that we have an electric scooter, a guy on an electric scooter who's riding in the crosswalk on a red, and he's going, faster than a pedestrian would normally go. The RTC bus in that scenario clearly has the right of way, but really any reasonable person would have seen and stopped the bus in time, and this one just didn't. Let me ask Mikey Slyman, what are the percentages of fault? Is it 100% the pedestrian's fault? Is it 100% the bus's fault? Is there a mix? And what's that mix?
Are those electric scooters considered like a pedestrian on foot, or are they supposed to follow the rules of traffic?
So, I'm not sure that I know.
And I hate to answer a question with a question.
Yeah.
But I guess I would
My understanding is the electric scooters are not considered vehicles.
Okay.
Unless they are able to go a certain speed.
Gotcha.
I want to say the statutory cutoff is 20 miles an hour, and I heard that Las Vegas itself might have an ordinance of 15 miles an hour, but I could be wrong there. So let's assume for our hypothetical that it is not a
that he's
vehicle.
allowed to be in there. I mean, I guess.
And even if he's not allowed to be in there, he is in there.
Yeah.
So I guess this question, does it matter?
Yeah.
He's not allowed to cross on the red anyway.
Yeah.
Does it matter to you that we double we double up on the wrong by he's not allowed to be in the red and he's on he should be walking and not on a scooter?
Yeah.
Does that matter? I mean, I don't. I have my opinion.
Yeah, I want to know. My opinion would be that, crosswalks have always been like, me as a driver, like in my neighborhood and where I drive my car, like I know, and there's a couple like crosswalks that are like so dirty. Like there's one on Warm Springs where it's not even at an intersection, right? Like it's just in the middle of traffic, and there's a light that flashes sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, but if you don't know that area, you don't know to look for a crosswalk there. And there's been multiple times where it's been like, late at night or early in the morning when the sun's, they got the sun in, and there's just someone there, and if they're in the crosswalk, I get it. If I hit them, I'm at fault.
But are you? That's what I'm asking. Let's say.
Well, for me, I always thought like, crosswalks are.
Well, let's say they're a crosswalk, but it's at a light where they have a red light. So there's a crosswalk, but they're not supposed to be on that crosswalk.
Gotcha. This one actually has the guy in the hand or whatever, and it's telling you.
Yeah.
Stop
So
or
let's
go.
imagine that our hypothetical. The pedestrian on the scooter, and I'm still going to call him a pedestrian even though he's on a scooter, is crossing the crosswalk, but he has that red hand.
Yeah.
He has the red hand. He's not supposed to go. And you, the driver, have a red light or have a green light. You can go.
Yeah.
But he's there.
I mean, I would say as long as I show duty to attempt to stop or stop before, like if I don't, and again, it would, I guess if there was a video of it, if I'm going X amount of speed and he enters like literally like seconds before, and there's almost, even if I brake at the moment before and I, go from 45 to 35 and still hit him, you know what I mean, while I'm in the process of braking and slowing down, that's still going to be a hard impact on a pedestrian.
Sure.
But I would hope I had some protection, you know what I mean?
Right.
I would hope I would have something that would say like, look, you had the hand, you weren't supposed to be there, you weren't paying attention, and I was, but he's got to be at some point, not this person, but that hypothetical.
Okay, now I'm going to run another hypothetical.
Yep.
Let's say that when we look back at the video and we pull out statistics, which absolutely happens. This is called human factors, how humans react in certain circumstances. And we pull out the statistics, and it shows that 99% of people, or 90% of people, would have stopped the bus in time.
Wow.
Yeah, we're just making this up. This, but how does that affect your analysis? So he shouldn't have been there.
And I'm in the 10% that didn't stop the bus on time?
The bus had the right to go, but 90% of bus drivers would have stopped in time. What's the percentage of fault?
Does the jury know that?
Yeah, the jury will find out.
That I'm in the 10%?
If that happens. One of the types of experts that are common in these types of things are human factors experts. They're often PhDs that have whole doctorate degrees on human factors, on the way people react in certain circumstances.
I think I need a lawyer.
And so what would happen is you have one human factors expert that would say, listen, we think that based on these facts, this bus driver performed in the bottom 10%. We think that most people would have stopped. And then you say whether the jury feels like that's negligent or not negligent, that's up to a jury.
Yeah.
We think most people think that would stop. And then presumably the bus driver would have another expert who may have, see things in a different way.
What's my punishment?
Money.
Okay.
I'm in the mind of civil right now.
Yeah, I'm assuming that, when I hit this person, I wasn't under the influence.
Not under the influence.
And I was just driving to work or just out and about, and it's a complete, total human error accident.
Human error accident, but really, DUI, really slow reaction.
No recklessness, no high rate of speed.
No reckless, no indication you're up on your phone and not looking at the road.
Yeah.
But clearly the argument is you're not paying attention because he was there to be seen, even though he's violating the law. So I'm asking, where does Mikey Slyman fall on that percentage of fault?
I would hope on the lower end.
Okay. So the thing that you say, I hope, and that, let me ask you this. Would you agree that different people may have different opinions on the degree of fault in that situation?
Definitely.
What that means is if different people could have different opinions and could put things on the different areas on that sliding scale of 0% liability to 100% liability, that means the only one in this world that can make that decision would be a jury. Or I guess a judge if nobody asked for a jury. But that'd be a jury question.
And I hope he got a good night's sleep. He got a good night's sleep.
That's one of the things we look at.
Right? That's brutal, right? And that's...
So you can see that, though, right? You're like, okay, that's, by the way, when we have people in deposition for those things, those absolutely.
Would you rather represent me, or would you rather be on the side of the person?
You're a client. I always want to represent you.
But I mean, as a lawyer.
Well, okay, so it depends on what is it you're trying to do. You always want to be on the winning side.
I mean, it sounds like I'm about to lose this case. It sounds like there's, is it can we cut a deal? You know what I mean?
Well, I think, so let's say that in that situation, the family were to hire a lawyer.
Yep.
And even though it looks like, on its face, the facts are bad for the scooter driver. And again, reminder to everybody, hypothetical, I don't know.
Just really quick, does this follow the criminal, is it, if the family hires a private attorney, who represents the other side? Another private attorney?
So when we say private, so there are no government. Well, I guess RTC is not going to have a government. It's going to have a private attorney. What's going to happen is each side is going to lawyer up. So
there's not a district attorney's office involvement or
So it depends on who is sued. Generally with RTC, it's going to be private attorney. If you sue the DOT, the city of Las Vegas, the federal or the government, the second that you start suing governmental agencies, then there by default is going to be government attorneys, but still most of the time they outsource it to private firms.
Gotcha.
Private firms are going to be better equipped at this kind of specialized area of law. And there are a dozen firms in Vegas that have very good and strong reputations for defending. But they would look for a firm that just defends.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And then the family, traditionally these types of cases would be handled by plaintiffs' attorneys, people who only represent plaintiffs. Very few attorneys in town represent both defense and plaintiffs. So they'd probably hire a plaintiff's firm, and they do that both because the plaintiff's firm has experience, but also who's going to pay them? Most people don't have $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000, whatever it's going to cost. And a case like that, if you're paying the attorney hourly and you're paying for all of the expert witnesses, you better have like a $300,000 to $500,000 budget, because that's what the defense is going to spend.
Yeah.
And people don't have that, so that's why they pay contingency.
Got you.
So the lawyer takes on all the risk, and if he loses and he spent money, the lawyer loses money. The lawyer takes on the financial risk, but then he's able to represent the family and get the family the justice. And maybe the justice they deserve in that case is to lose. That may be where justice leads.
Yeah.
But the family really deserves to have somebody investigate and find out, well, did it take the guy 10 seconds to stop?
Yeah.
When he should have taken 5 seconds? And what time did he go to bed that night?
Yep.
Those are legitimate questions that will never be answered outside of investigation, because it's not like the RTC is just going to give that information over to the family unless they need to through litigation.
Which I'm sure their lawyers would advise 100% no, that we have to go to court for that.
Yeah. No,
that's what I mean. Like,
it has been very rare. I can think of a handful of cases.
now let me ask you a question. Like a side question.
Yeah.
A passenger on the bus that's now involved in that accident.
Yeah.
Where did they stand now? So the bus company, right? And then they're going to get sued by the family of the person they hit.
Probably.
Does every passenger on that bus have a case too? Because they were involved in that car accident?
If they're hurt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
If they're hurt. So, and it's a different scale. So you have two parties. You have the bus driver and you have the scooter rider. And no matter what the facts are, whether the scooter rider had a total green and had the right to be in that crosswalk, that same analysis that I just gave for the bus, the defense will still run that on the scooter driver, right? Let's say the scooter has a completely right of way. People are going to ask, well, at what point did it become apparent the bus was still going, and did the scooter have time to stop? Because what they're trying to do in that case is, again, spread liability out.
Yep.
The passengers of the bus, if they have injury, and a sudden stopping of a bus, it can cause injury.
Yeah, if you're one of the people like holding on to the rail.
In theory, yeah. Most of the time it doesn't, but it could. All they would have to show is 1% liability. So what happens there is, in Nevada, if you are a victim, then and you're at all at fault, you can't be more than 50% at fault. If you're more than 50% at fault for your own injury, you can't blame anyone else. It's just 51% is the same as 100% your fault.
Wow.
But if you're an innocent victim, it's a little bit different. An innocent victim, all they have to do is show that whoever it is they're suing, they don't have to sue everybody. They can pick and choose.
Yeah.
That whoever it is they're suing is at least 1% at fault. And if, let's say that you're an innocent victim because you're a passenger on the bus, you don't control the bus at all, and you can show the bus is 1% at fault, it's the same as the bus being 100% at fault.
Well,
and so now we're going to make up another crazy scenario, right? Guy's he's standing up on the bus. There's a sudden stopping of the bus. He falls down, cracks his head open, and he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the family there could go for the bus, even if the bus is 1% at fault, and say the bus is responsible for the guy's death. And the bus would say, well, I don't know. He should have been holding on tighter.
But if it was the pedestrian's fault.
But even if it's the pedestrian's fault, 99%.
And there's a death because of that inside the bus.
And there's 1% on the bus is going to be probably not liable for the scooter's death in that hypothetical scenario, because we just said that in that hypothetical, the rider of the scooter is 99% at fault. Yeah. But because the people on the bus are special innocence,
Yep.
they have no control over the situation,
Yeah.
then, if they get hurt and it's really not their fault, then they can go after anybody
Oh, wow.
who is at least 1% at fault.
Man, driving is just one of those things. Like, we take it for granted. I mean, it can go so bad so fast and be just
can.
life-changing in a second.
But that's the thing is that
That's the scary part. Like,
Right.
it could just, that.
But when you get into that car and you get behind that wheel, you understand that. And the reality is we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
Everybody makes mistakes while driving. It's just most of the time nothing bad happens with those mistakes. But,
That's why I prefer to be a driver, not a passenger. Honestly, you know what I mean? Like,
you want to be in control.
I trust myself. I mean, even though I just, got hit backing out of a driveway,
Right.
but I mean, it was very few and far between, but like still, I like to be, I don't like to be a passenger at all. I never did.
But I'm just trying to think of, but now let's talk about like the real thing.
Yeah.
I would really like to know, who had the red, who didn't have the red.
Yeah.
And regardless of who's at fault, think about the poor family.
Yeah.
So even if it's that guy's fault, think about the poor family.
Yeah.
And if it's not his fault, again, that poor family, somebody took something from them very valuable. And but it also raises an interesting thing of scooters. You see more and more of them, and you see more and more people on the streets without helmets. And
everything now, scooters, those one-wheel things, those.
Do you know what the craziest of the one-wheel things? So we looked into that once. So somebody was telling me I should start, because I ride motorcycles. I'm like, well, you should ride that. I don't want to ride that. But I was curious. I looked at it. And there are...
We're talking about the one you like sit on, right? Not the one that's like a skateboard with the wheel in the middle.
I'm talking
about the one that's like the one-wheel thing where you kind of like, you could stand on it.
Like you kind of straddle it.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Man, those things.
So I was riding in a pack of motorcycles. We had maybe 100 in the pack. And I looked to the right of me, and there was some guy who was like a little bit taller than, like unusually tall. And I looked, and he wasn't on a motorcycle, but he was in the pack, in position with us. And he's
in formation.
In formation, in the pack, on one of those unicycles, on those one wheels.
Those things are insane.
So when we looked it up, like the top performing one at the time that I found it had a range of 100 miles and a top speed of 65.
There's
freeway speeds.
There's a guy, 215 in Gibson area. I see him all the time. I mean, and he's moving. And I never looked it up. I never knew how fast it went. But yeah, I believe it 100% because you'll be getting off the freeway and coming on again. He just goes flying by. And I see him, we must go to work at the same time or something. But I mean, my goodness, this dude is just flying.
I asked one of them, what happens if you hit a pothole?
Yeah.
He said, well, you jump. Like they just jump at 60 miles an hour.
Yeah. We should buy one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We got to get one.
And we should buy very hefty life insurance policies.
Yes, we should buy one just to, how much are they when you looked them up?
Oh, this one was like $4,000.
That's how much those things cost?
Yeah.
So as much as like a scooter.
Yeah.
It makes sense because they do go fast.
So here's the thing, though. If your wife buys you one of those and an insurance policy, just be careful.
Just be careful.
Just be careful.
Listen, if you're watching and you have one of those, inbox me. I want to come. I want to talk to you.
Yeah,
I do want to talk to you. I do want to see it. I do want to. I've never gotten to actually experience one. So if any of our audience does have one, please let me know. I'll come out and we'll film a whole nother video with that.
But I get worried because I have a middle school kid.
Yeah.
And we drop her off at school, and you see these middle school kids just zooming in and out of that parking lot on these e-scooters.
Yeah.
And then I see these e-bikes that are going up the street with, again, kids on them. My
son just turned 13 yesterday. He wants one of these more than anything. And, me, being around motorcycle riders, me being, knowing you and hearing all the stories and then running this page, I just can't let him. No. I just can't. I can't. And it's horrible because it's all he wants. And he's a good kid. He gets good grades. He goes to school. He plays sports. It's all he wants. And it's I just can't.
Have you ever been on one?
Oh, yeah.
They're a little scary because I'm sure if you're good at them, you can balance well. But I was thinking when I wrote it, I'm not as skilled as I'm sure somebody who rides it all the time, but I was probably going 15 miles an hour.
We're talking about the stand-up scooter
Yeah,
ones?
we're talking about the stand-up scooter ones.
So some of those have suspension. They like have a clearance. You know, like there's like the big, like the grown man ones, like the big ones. We have customers that ride them up to our bar and restaurant, and they pull and and so I've gone around the parking lot on them, and I was like, because my son was talking about it, and so I got on one at the restaurant and I rode it around the parking lot, and then I said, wait a minute, this thing. I was like, this guy's telling me he lives 2 miles away, so I started going down Gibson, and I was like, I'm in traffic in this thing, no helmet on, just in like the far right, off to the right on the on the other side of the solid white line, and just going.
So here's the thing. You know how helmets are required in Nevada for motorcycles, but not in Utah, not in Arizona. Yeah. And you have all these people that go to the border and then they take off their helmet.
Yeah.
The second they're over the state.
Weirdest thing.
I'll tell you, I think personally, I would rather force the scooter riders to wear helmets than I would motorcycles.
I mean, there should be a helmet law for everything, really. I mean, what's...
Think about how unstable you were on that thing.
It's crazy. And you go from like you're standing up, and I'm a big, heavy guy, and I wasn't comfortable at all. Like I said, I'd rather ride a motorcycle than that thing. That thing was terrifying. And like I said, I just hopped on it thinking it was like a toy. It's not a toy.
No,
that thing is
toys.
not a toy.
They're not toys.
That is a method of transportation.
Like if I had one for my kid that could throttle at like 8 miles an hour, maybe.
Yeah, like, and we're talking like the little toys with a little chargeable battery, and you charge it, you ride it around the driveway.
But when they go 20 miles an hour, it really is fast.
There's a group of kids that always, up there in the neighborhood that's always, I think every neighborhood has the group of kids on the e-bikes that are wheeling through traffic, and now the scooter, and I think because of the emergency group, I'm pretty sure every neighborhood in town has the group of kids, and I know one of them that's notorious is the Mountain's Edge group of kids. And because I see them posted the most. I don't live out there. I don't know that area that well, but the Mountain's Edge group, like these kids are popular, but there's videos of these kids like on their electric e-bikes, just wheeling down Rainbow, wheeling down Cactus, like in and out of traffic. People are taking pictures and they're just flipping them off. Like it's, and you're like, they don't understand the value of life. Like, and going back to where we started this thing with, that kid that passed away, like, and I'm not saying he was doing anything. I don't know what the circumstances that led to that accident. But, like, that's the reality of owning those, of ownership, just like a motorcycle, just like a car, just like a regular bicycle. We see those, those road bike riders. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, a whole pack of them got taken out, and.
That was horrible.
They, a whole pack of, but so anything you do, recreational, transportation, the vehicle you own to, to go to work or just to own it, like I said, I have a 17-year-old driver in my house too. Like that's a scary thing too, to hand over the, not that we don't trust her as much, but she's inexperienced and she's gonna, they always say you wreck your first car or whatever, however that goes.
And it goes back down to that balance between understanding that you're doing something risky.
Yeah.
And the kind of the acceptance of that risk versus what I have to deal with in court, which is a concept called acceptance of risk, which is like a defense. I mean, you knew it was dangerous, therefore I now have a license to hurt you. That's kind of dumb.
Yeah, that's like the guy that says, well, she shouldn't have dressed so provocatively and she wouldn't have got assault. You know what I mean? Like same thing.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different, but
along the same lines.
Along the same lines.
Yeah.
But I was also, my wife, who's a lot more fit than I am, has a lot of friends that, they ride street bikes. They're athletic, and we have a number of them that have been seriously hurt just riding bicycles.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of risk on anything you do.
Which kind of leads me into something I wanted to talk to you about. There was an incident where two kids, one was like 21 and 22 years old, and one was a juvenile. They were riding e-bikes and they got hit. One of them was critical and one passed away on the scene. I don't know if you remember seeing that one, but there was another local journalist who does similar work than we do, and he's more of a camera guy that likes to post what he sees. And he had posted to his YouTube channel the dead juvenile body,
Jeez.
and the scene as it unfolded with people responding, and he showed them doing chest compressions, and he did put a little blur spot on the face of the juvenile, but still, for us, people get mad at us that, we get that video too.
Sure.
I get that video all the time. I've seen more gore and dead bodies and stuff in my inbox that people think that, oh, here it is, I'm not gonna post it.
You know what's funny is when we're like in front of a jury,
Yeah.
we often make the choice not to show the jury the goriest stuff because there's a certain audience for it. There's a certain,
Yeah.
You might get more views, maybe.
Yeah.
But when we're thinking about the jury, do we really want to offend them or think that our case is only based on shock? For you guys, I don't know the legality of that. Like the juvenile, I don't know. I'd have to, I could research it. I could figure it out, but off the cuff, I don't know. I will say though, that there's a certain amount of respect and a certain amount of, so I'm just going to talk about not my legal opinion, but my personal opinion, my personal thoughts. There's a balance between the public's right to know and the desire to know, and the desire to see all the super personal facts,
correct,
versus a certain level of privacy and respect, and realizing the family's gonna see it.
Yeah, the family,
the
friends,
family and the friends,
the student body of the deceased,
they're gonna see it.
Yeah.
And is that something we really want to put out there out of respect for them? It affects people's lives, and everything you do is going to affect somebody's life to an extent. Correct. I mean, reporting on it at all is going to affect lives. People are going to see it, and when you put out the wrong facts, because news puts out the wrong facts all the time. They try to get the right facts. It's not necessarily like bad journalism.
It's tough, and sometimes the facts change.
And sometimes the facts, the knowable facts, change. That's just the nature of fast-moving news.
Yep.
But it's different than putting images of dead bodies.
You don't need it to tell the story.
No.
If I tell you, listen, there was a 14-year-old that passed away in an accident here, it starts with this. What's going on at, this intersection, and then we come back with here's the answer, I should be able to just say it and not make you see it.
But that goes back down to the same idea with the jury.
Yeah.
We don't need those images to tell the story. Sometimes they are necessary. Sometimes there are nuances of the fact, to prove a point. But just for the gratuitous nature of it, for the shock value,
not necessary.
Not necessary.
Like for us, that was like a big thing. Like that was one of the scenes where, this particular camera person lived in the area and got on scene very quickly, but then made a big deal about, I got the footage, like no one cares. As far as the news goes, as far as what I believe, if you need to see that picture, you're on a different level. And it's not a good level. It's down there. You know what I mean?
I support that.
And for me, it's like I run a service that says people want to know what's this emergency response that has the whole intersection closed down and traffic backed up for miles. And it's my duty to say, look, this is what happened. And some days it's, a car accident. And some days it's a deceased juvenile that's laying in the middle of the road and the scee's horrific. But again, I don't need to show that to answer your question.
I'm with you too. There are times where I'll have video, like sometimes pretty darn quickly, of fatal wrecks.
Yeah.
Like the other day I had one where it was horrible. A motorcycle ran into somebody, and you watch the video, and you could see the motorcyclist go flying and flipping, and he dies. Mm-hmm. I may have possession of that video, but I'm not posting it online.
Yeah, or you're probably not taking it out and showing your buddies when you get off work. Like, look what you know what I mean? Like,
no.
And that's the right thing to do and to not do. You know what I mean? Like, so for us, like, I know I got upset with the video, and, I probably said a little too much about my feelings about the person that posted it, whatever. But, I have children that age. I have children that live in that area. And we played baseball with kids in that area. And until we knew the name of it, I was just being overprotective of the, so, that was like one of the things that we get, like that's one of the things that we come across. Another thing we come across is.
But I think that also means that you take things more seriously because it's not just going after the gratuitous.
For us, we get the views, we get the clicks, we get the, we get it, and our numbers prove it. We have a large following in our group, and we have a pretty steady diehard group of people that know they can come here for the correct stuff. There's other similar groups, but honestly, other groups are just reposting news articles. They're taking info from our group. We're pretty quick, and like I said, we're pretty accurate. And if we're not, we take it down right away.
Right.
Or we'll shut it down. We won't, a lot of people, excuse me, a lot of people want to like speculate, and the speculation turns into wrong misinformation. Then someone reads it while they're driving and go, oh, active shooter, and it's not, there's a difference between someone shooting someone at a gas station and an active shooter on Las Vegas, but they're two completely different things. There's an active shooting investigation versus an active shooter. Two completely different things. And that's one of the common things that happen. Everybody loves that term. The media created that word. People love to type that word out and say, oh, there's an active shooter, and then they share it, and then the screen is like, whoa, no, not active shooter. No one's actively going around gunning down innocent people. Innocent people might have been gunned down, but it was an isolated incident. It's under control. It's being investigated, and that's like another big thing that we deal with in that group. So, and it's been great to have you and your insight and all the other good stuff that you brought to the table, and the access to have like conversations like this with you, because it really opens up, a huge area of things that we were even unaware of. We've been doing this for 10 years, and then like to get your perspective, it's like a whole new level for us. So it's amazing. And for you, I've talked to a lot of lawyers in my day. We talked to a lot of people. A lot of people message us, but you're someone that loves what you do. You're very well, knowledgeable about what you do. You love what you do. So to have you involved is like it's the perfect match. It's a really good, I think we have a good dynamic. I think we get along great, and we communicate great. So,
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, that's been the good part about it, but, like talking about crime in Vegas, accidents in Vegas, every day there's something, there's someone dying in a house fire. There's someone getting hit by a car. There's someone dying in a motorcycle accident. There's someone dying in some weird way or another. It's always, just when you thought you've seen it all, there's something new.
I mean, we've got the population base now.
Yeah.
And it's Vegas.
That's the thing. The population base is when we were, I'm born and raised here, so I grew up here in the 80s.
Right.
When there was 250,000 people here, versus now. So watching a small town become a big city, now we get the big national stories. We have these, people firebombing Tesla dealerships. We have, a Tesla blowing up at the Trump hotel. We have, shooters from Mandalay Bay killing, we have every type of story is going on in this town, and we get it all, and even going back to that Mandalay Bay shooting, like we were reporting that in real time before the national news, the international news, even the local news. We had people posting on the page, like live streaming, and people were getting all that right away. For the first few hours, it was our group for that. And then as the story came out,
So what time did that happen? Like, do you remember what time of day that was? It was in the evening.
It was in the evening. It was at a concert. I don't remember what day it was. And I remember I was on my way I was running an errand. And I remember I checked the group chat, and it was like, oh, there's a shooting at a concert at Mandalay Bay. And I was thinking, maybe someone in the valet. I wasn't picturing what had happened. There's no way you could have had that, in your head. And I pictured like a fight in the valet or something turned into a shooting. And then I remember I put the phone down for 5 minutes. And I remember when I checked the phone back, checked back the group chat, and they're like, estimated, 20 people dead. And I was like, 20 people? Then it was 30, 40. I was like, whoa.
Well, because I'm asking because I remember, so I woke up the next morning.
Yeah.
And it turns out that I had represented the shooter years ago in a slip and fall that he'd had. And I had a voice message from the RJ. I want to say it was about 12:30 at night, because they looked at the public records, saw that I had represented him like years before.
Gotcha, yeah.
And so I'm just trying to think about the speed of
If I remember correctly, I want to say maybe in between 8 p.m. and like 10 p.m., somewhere in that window of like from the first shot fired. And then one of our team members was there at the concert. So we were getting, live, again, and, and we weren't, there was a ton of images that we could have shared, but we didn't, and it was just at that time.
And that's the responsible thing.
Yeah, and that's what people want. Oh, it's social media, it's the internet. You're not the real news. And it's like, well, time over time again, we've proved to be the real news, because our news is real and it's accurate, and I'm not saying we compete with, the big guys and the big network. That's a whole different level of thing. We're community-based, we're an information sharing that gets the information out. We vet it through our sources, and that's, we're not,
Sure.
a big news company. We can never compete because in the end, like you said, on the deeper dive, they get us on all the other stuff, and that's whatever. But right away, like the first, like to break it, we get it.
Right.
And then they get access. Yeah.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock's
yeah.
when it happened.
And so like.
That was pretty fast. That was a pretty fast turnaround for me to get that call.
Oh yeah. I mean, someone dove into it and, what, they just want a statement from you?
Yeah, well, it was funny because I remember I got the phone call. So I woke up the next morning and I saw I had a missed call and I saw that it was a voice message. So I listened to the voice message and said, hey, Jared, this is so-and-so from the RJ. I don't remember who.
Yeah.
And they said, we want to talk to you about, what was it? No, early in the morning, my wife, when I woke up, my wife said, hey, it's on the news. There's some guy by the name of Stephen Paddock that had shot, because the name was already reported. In the news. And I thought, I know that name.
Yeah.
Where do I know that name? That name sounds really familiar. And I couldn't place it. It wasn't, I just went on with the morning. And then I picked up the phone and saw that I'd missed a call, listened to the voice message. It was at RJ. And somebody saying, hey, I want to talk to you about Stephen Paddock. It seems like that you're his lawyer. And
like big difference. I don't represent him right now.
It took me a minute to even remember who that was. But yeah, I'd taken care of like the very beginning of his case. And then an associate of mine went and took his case through arbitration.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking, boy, that was fast that they connected my name there.
There was a lot of deep diving. I remember we had people, we were pulling up all kinds of stuff. There was, we had, found his home address. We found his address in Mesquite. We found, who the girlfriend was. And there was a lot of information coming in. And I remember like processing it as it came in. And like a lot of it was real. Like a lot of it turned out to be like substantial stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is way too heavy for me. Like and I remember like I had gotten a call from the like federal authorities the next day. And they're like, hey, like, how did you get your information so fast? And I was like, look, man, at the time, I think we had around maybe 75 or 80, 90,000 members, somewhere in there, And I was like, look, man, here's the deal. Like, check this out. And people were there and they were, and he was like, oh, okay. We were wondering, like how you knew so much about. And I was like, well, I didn't know it beforehand. I didn't know, like, I'll show you my first alert was after the first shot was fired. So then they just kind of, disappeared onto other leads, but they wanted to know how we had gotten it so fast. Because even to them, they're like, wow, you had it before everybody.
I remember getting, like, I want to say, it's been so long. I think we got a subpoena for his records, which is fine. You have a subpoena, you have a subpoena. I remember getting a lot of phone calls from, like, New York Times, USA Today, those types, and telling them I can't talk. And I still don't. It's public record that I represented him. Yeah. But we don't talk
we can't,
about clients.
Correct.
Remember, it was surreal. One day I was taking my kid home from soccer practice, and there was a New York Times reporter standing in my driveway wanting to, because there was a deposition that had been taken and medical records that they wanted. And I remember, he said, can you take a walk? I took a walk with him, and he kept on saying, well, just give it to us. Just give it to us.
Give it to us.
The public has a right to know. I'm like, I know, but I can't.
It's also against the law for me to be the one to I
don't know if it would be against the law, but it would be against our rules of ethics.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't violate our rules of ethics. And ultimately, I want to say, trying to remember exactly how this was framed in the court, but I think, I can't remember if we got sued or somebody, I can't remember who the actual plaintiff and defendants were, but the point was to try to get the court to force us to surrender medical records.
Yeah.
And I remember our response was, HIPAA protects you for so many years after death.
Yep.
And the court agreed, and it is what it is.
Lawyers doing lawyer stuff.
Lawyers doing lawyer stuff.
Lawyers doing lawyer stuff, Good conversation. I hope to do this more often. It's a good way to talk about stuff in the group, bring it to reality, make it real, give people an idea, and we want to see participation, comment, give us more ideas to talk about. Like I said, if you own a one-wheel thing, please bring it to me.
Let Mikey write it.
If you're the 215 and Gibson guy, come in, talk to me. But yeah, I want to know what that's like. And I looked before, there's no one that rents them. Like I thought there'd be someone on the strip that's renting those, and if you have the insurance for that, that's a great idea. I don't, that's royalty-free idea, but like that was one of my biggest fears. Like someone's going to rent these on the strip and they're going to be all over Las Vegas Boulevard because they have the guys that ride the, like the grocery car. Have you seen those guys?
Which one's the
what are they called, Angus? Do you know that's a whole nother video. We'll do that on a whole nother video. But to set it up for the next video, the carts, they're like what you get like when you go to Sam's Club or Walmart or the grocery store, if you're like handicapped. Someone rents those on the strip and they ride them up and down. You don't know about this?
No.
I will get you B-roll on that.
Okay.
And we will talk about that in a whole nother video because those people, there's been accidents. There has been accidents, but they rent them out 10, 20 at a time. People come in groups and you'll see them up and down the strip. You'll see them dragging the one that broke down. You'll see them riding through traffic. They split lanes, but yeah, let's leave it on that note. Guys, thanks for watching. We do want your participation. Leave some comments for us. And again, thanks for watching. Thanks for the conversation. Thank you, Jared.
Absolutely.
Perfect.